Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, uh, you know that feeling when you're scrolling through your feed or watching the evening news, and you just get this overwhelming sinking sense that the world has somehow lost its anchor.
Oh, yeah. It's this profound sort of vertigo, honestly.
Right, like the traditional rules of how we govern ourselves or how we understand basic facts or even how we view the future, they've just been completely unmoored.
Absolutely.
And that is exactly why today we are diving into Hannah Arendt's 1961 classic, Between Past and Future. We're going to explore the breakdown of tradition, the bizarre mutation of how we view history, and this massive crisis of authority we're currently sitting in.
All to figure out exactly why the modern world feels so chaotic to you right now.
Exactly.
Because people often find it comforting to think of this chaos as just, a modern accident. We blame it on a glitch of the internet age or a recent political misstep or a specific algorithm.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's just a temporary bug in the system. Yeah.
Right. But the reality presented in these sources is far deeper. And honestly, a bit more daunting. We are actually living in a very specific historical void.
Avoid.
Yeah, Arendt describes it as the gap between past and future. And we're going to break down not just what happened to our societal structures to create this gap, but why it directly impacts how you experience reality today.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to understand this gap we're living in, we first have to look at what happens when tradition disappears.
Which is a huge structural loss.
Right. And the source material starts with this incredibly gripping historical example involving René Char and the French resistance during World War II.
Yes, Char was a French poet. And before the war, he and his generation of writers were living relatively private intellectual lives.
Just doing their thing.
Exactly. Then occupation happens. And suddenly, they're sucked into the resistance. They are thrust into a world of intense life-or-death action.
And in doing so, they found something completely unexpected.
They called it a nameless treasure.
And this treasure, I mean, it wasn't gold and it wasn't political power in the traditional sense.
No, not at all. It was the discovery of themselves.
Wow. By stepping out of their private lives and taking pure initiative, they found this kind of public freedom.
Right. They stripped away all the usual masks and hypocrisies of society, and they created a space between themselves where true freedom could actually sit down at the table with them.
That is such a powerful image. But the tragedy of the story is what happened after the war ended.
Yeah. The liberation they fought so desperately for was the very thing that ruined their hidden island of freedom. France was freed, and the resistance fighters returned to what Char called the sad opaqueness of a private life.
The sad opaqueness. So they just went back to normal.
Basically, yeah. The political arena just reverted back to the empty strife of conflicting ideologies, parliamentary bickering, paper wars.
Just business as usual.
Exactly, and the treasure was lost.
Shaw wrote this one line about that loss that it hit so hard. He said, "Our inheritance was left to us by no testament."
And that phrase, that is the skeleton key to this whole concept.
Really? How so?
Well, think about what a testament actually does. A testament is tradition. It's the mechanism that selects, names, and hands down the past to the future.
Okay, I'm with you.
It tells the heir what is rightfully theirs and how to value it. Without that testament, without a living tradition, the treasure of action is forgotten. There is just no willed continuity in time.
Wait, let me make sure I'm following this. The actors themselves, like these resistance fighters, they couldn't even hold on to the value of what they had just experienced because they didn't have the cultural framework to name it.
Precisely. Without a framework to name an experience, the experience essentially vanishes from collective memory. You can't pass down what you can't articulate.
Oh, well.
And this predicament isn't just historical, it's exactly where we are today. We've lost our testament.
Which brings us to Franz Kafka. He captured this beautifully in a parable about a man engaged in a fight.
He did. It's a very striking image.
I was reading this, and it paints such a vivid picture. There's this man, and he has two antagonists pressing in on him.
The forces of time.
Right. The first is the past, which is pressing him from behind, pushing him forward. And the second is the future, which is blocking the road ahead and violently driving him back.
So he's just stuck in the middle.
Exactly, fighting both forces simultaneously. And his ultimate dream is that one day he can jump out of the fighting line entirely and become an umpire elevated above the struggle.
But art actually modifies Kafka's vision here. Because time isn't just a straight line where these forces clash head-on and just crush you flat.
Because we're involved, right?
Right. Because a human being is inserted into time, the forces of past and future should deflect. Imagine it like physics. They form a parallelogram of forces.
A parallelogram.
Yes. The clash of the past pushing forward and the future pushing back results in a third diagonal force.
I was trying to wrap my head around this parallelogram idea, and tell me if I'm off base here, but I pictured it like standing in a narrow hallway.
Okay, a narrow hallway.
Yeah. And the walls of the past and the future are closing in to crush you. But instead of just pushing back against them in a straight line, just getting exhausted, you realize you can step sideways into a completely new spatial dimension.
I like that.
That sideways step where you actually have room to breathe and observe.
Yeah.
That is this diagonal force of thought.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. That diagonal force is rooted in the present, right where the clash happens, but it points infinitely outward. It is the activity of thought.
But there's a catch.
A big one. The danger is, without tradition to guide us, we're barely equipped to find that diagonal step anymore. For thousands of years, the gap between past and future was bridged by tradition.
It gave us the map.
Exactly. Now the thread is broken, the map is burned, and we're just getting crushed in the hallway.
Which naturally leads to the big question. If tradition was the testament keeping us grounded, where did our Western tradition come from in the first place? And who broke it?
Right, because the sources outline a very specific beginning and end to this framework.
So it started with the Greeks, yeah.
Yes. The tradition of Western political thought is fascinatingly bookended. It began with Plato and Aristotle, and it ended definitively with Karl Marx.
So with Plato, he basically set the template in his allegory of the cave.
The philosopher turning away from the darkness.
Exactly. The philosopher turns away from the dark, confusing, messy world of human affairs and politics and looks up to the clear sky of eternal, transcendent ideas. The goal is to bring those higher standards down to impose order on politics.
And Marx inverted this entirely. Instead of turning away from politics to find truth in philosophy, Marx turned away from philosophy to realize it in politics.
That's a massive shift.
It is.
Wow.
His famous mandate was that philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point is to change it. He wanted to drag the sky of ideas down and force it into the messy reality of human labor and political action.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. By trying to force this, Marx created massive contradictions in his own work.
He certainly did.
On one hand, he claimed that labor created man,
Hmm.
right, making labor the most essential human quality. And he said violence is the midwife of history.
Right.
But then his ultimate utopian goal, like the end of history, is this stateless, classless society where labor is basically abolished by machines and everyone just has immense leisure time.
The irony there is staggering when you look at the historical context. Marx's futuristic, classless utopia was essentially just an idealized, mechanized version of the ancient Athenian polis.
Wait, really? The ancient Greeks?
Yes. Think about it. In ancient Athens, the citizens could only participate in the freedom of politics because they relied on the brutal labor of others.
Slaves.
Slaves, exactly, to handle the biological necessities of life. They needed immense leisure time to be free.
Wait, so if Marx's ideal utopia was essentially this ancient Greek setup where everyone just has leisure time to pursue higher callings,
Yeah.
isn't it completely contradictory that he made labor the highest defining trait of humanity?
Completely contradictory.
Because to the Greeks, labor was the most despised activity, precisely because it tied you to biological survival like an animal.
It's a flagrant contradiction. He glorified the very thing he ultimately wanted to abolish. But the sources point out why he did this.
Why?
Marx, along with other 19th century rebels like Søren Kierkegaard and Friedrich Nietzsche, were trapped. They were desperately trying to think against the heavy weight of the Western tradition.
But they were stuck inside it.
Exactly. They only had the tradition's conceptual tools to do it with.
So they just took the existing concepts and flipped them upside down.
Precisely. Kierkegaard leaped from the tradition of doubt into radical belief. Marx leaped from the tradition of theory into pure action and labor.
Yeah, Nietzsche.
Nietzsche performed what's called an inverted Platonism. If Plato said the transcendent soul is higher than the physical body, Nietzsche flipped it, leaping from transcendent ideas down into sensuous biological life. He declared God is dead and elevated the physical.
Wow, just flipping the whole board.
But by just turning a traditional hierarchy upside down, you don't escape the hierarchy, you just destroy its structural integrity. And that destruction eventually led to a total loss of meaning in the modern world.
So the framework of tradition collapses. It's broken. This brings us to the next massive shift we need to talk about.
The mutation of history.
Exactly. Because once tradition is gone, our relationship with the past fundamentally changes. We stop looking at history as a record of immortal human greatness and started treating it as a mechanical process.
And to really feel the weight of this shift, we need to understand how the ancient Greeks viewed the world. For a historian like Herodotus, nature was an immortal spinning
This
wheel.
is going on forever.
Right, it was an ever-recurring cycle of seasons, birth, and death. Human life, however, was mortal. The text calls human life a rectilinear interruption in that immortal cycle.
Let me translate that rectilinear interruption for a second. Basically, nature is a circle that keeps spinning forever, and a human life is just a straight line cutting through that circle.
That's a great way to put it.
You were born, you make your mark, you die, the line ends. But the wheel keeps spinning.
That's exactly it. And because human life was just a brief, straight line, the whole point of history was to record great human deeds and words.
To make them immoral.
Yes. History was an attempt to make human actions immortal, to save the extraordinary from being forgotten so it could be worthy of existing alongside immortal nature.
But then the modern age hits, and we get René Descartes and his telescope, and this completely shatters that romantic view.
The telescope proved that our bodily senses completely deceive us.
Because our eyes tell us the sun moves around the earth.
Right, but the telescope proved the Earth moves around the sun, and this triggered a profound existential panic, a world alienation. Suddenly, humans felt homeless in their own universe.
Like we can't trust our own eyes.
Exactly. If our own eyes and ears are lying to us, we can no longer trust what is simply given to us by nature or God.
Which opens the door for Giambattista Vico in the 18th century, who basically offers a lifeline.
Yes, Vico says, look, if we can't know nature because God made it and it's too confusing, we can at least know history.
Because we made that.
Right. We can only truly know what we build with our own hands.
But that creates a huge problem, right?
A massive one. Once we adopt Vico's mindset that history is something we make, it ceases to be a collection of singular, beautiful, great deeds. It mutates into a man-made process.
Like a machine.
Exactly. It becomes a machine we are building. And this introduces a massive danger. We start mistaking a meaning for an end.
Okay, the text uses a carpenter analogy here that I think perfectly clarifies this for the listener. Making a table is an in order to. It's an end goal.
Right. You perform specific actions in order to finish the table.
But the underlying reason you become a carpenter in the first place, like maybe a love of craft or providing for your family, that is a for the sake of, that is a meaning.
And meaning isn't a final product you can just finish and put in a room.
Exactly.
But if we start treating human history exactly like making a table, every achieved goal just becomes a means to the next goal.
Like an endless assembly line.
Right. Marx thought the historical process was like a massive manufacturing plant, with a final end product of the classless society. But meaning can never be the product of a human activity the way a table is the product of a carpenter.
So what happens when we do that?
When you degrade meaning into an end, all ends eventually just become means to something else, and meaning vanishes from the world entirely. You end up in a utilitarian nightmare, constantly asking, what is the use of use?
That is so bleak. And we didn't just stop at turning history into a utilitarian process, though. We applied this exact same mindset to nature.
What's fascinating here is that this is the defining, terrifying feature of modern technology. Before the 20th century, if humans built a bridge, started a war, or formed a nation, they were acting into history.
The human realm.
Yes, nature itself, the weather, the oceans, the atoms that remained untouched and permanent. But with modern science, specifically the splitting of the atom, we changed the
We
rules.
started acting into nature.
We did. We triggered chain reactions that the natural universe would never have started on its own. We took human unpredictability and injected it directly into the physical building blocks of the universe.
It's genuinely terrifying when you map it out like that. We destroyed the guardrails of tradition, we mutated history into a cold mechanical process, and then we started physically messing with the building blocks of the universe.
It sets the stage perfectly.
It really does. It sets the stage for the massive vacuum in how we govern ourselves. We arrive at the crisis of authority.
Because with tradition broken and history reduced to a process, a massive political vacuum opened up. And in the 20th century, that vacuum was filled by the darkest political inventions in human history.
But to understand how we got there, we first have to rigorously define what authority actually is. Because we use the word completely wrong today.
We really do.
The source material is very strict about this. Authority is Roman in origin. It is a hierarchical relationship that is recognized as legitimate by both the ruler and the ruled.
Crucially, it is not persuasion.
Right. Persuasion relies on egalitarian argument, where everyone is equal, and authority is absolutely not violence or coercion.
That's a vital point. If a leader has to use force to get you to comply, their authority has already failed.
But we completely miss this today, don't we?
We need to look impartially at how modern political camps completely misunderstand this concept. The sources highlight that modern liberals often mistakenly equate authoritarianism with totalitarianism.
Because they view any restriction of freedom, like any hierarchy, as a slippery slope to total domination.
Exactly. Conservatives, on the other hand, often mistakenly equate totalitarianism with a lack of authority, believing a return to strong, forceful leadership will cure it.
But they're both wrong.
Both sides are entirely wrong because they both falsely equate authority with violence.
To really grasp this, we need to break down the 3 structural models of government from the text. This is crucial for you listening, to actually visualize how these systems operate behind the scenes.
It helps make it so much clearer.
So model number 1 is the authoritarian government. The image here is a pyramid.
In the authoritarian pyramid, the source of authority is located outside and above the pyramid itself.
Like God or natural law.
Exactly. Think of it as God, or the immutable laws of nature, or deep past traditions. Authority filters down carefully through the layers of the pyramid.
Step by step.
Right. Each layer has some authority, but less than the one above it. They are all firmly integrated, and, most importantly, they all recognize the legitimacy of that transcendent source at the very top.
Okay, so if the first model is a stable pyramid, what happens when a system goes darker? Does the pyramid just get steeper? Model number 2 is tyranny, and the image here is the suspended top.
Imagine that same pyramid, but all the intervening layers, the middle management, the local leaders, the courts, they are all destroyed.
Wiped out.
Gone. The top is suspended in midair, supported only by violence. Its proverbial bayonets hovering over a mass of perfectly equal, completely isolated, and utterly powerless individuals.
It is one ruler against all. But then we get to model number 3, which is totalitarianism. And this isn't a pyramid at all. The image here is an onion.
The totalitarian onion is perhaps the most insidious structure ever designed. The leader is located in the empty center of the onion.
The empty center.
Yes. The structure is built out in successive layers. You have the front organizations on the outside, then the party members, then the party bureaucracy, and finally the elite police formations near the core.
I was reading this and trying to visualize it in a modern context. Tell me if this analogy holds up. Is it almost like a modern toxic corporate culture or a cult?
A cult is a very good comparison.
Right, because you have the outer layer, like the PR department,
Yeah.
or the casual entry-level members. They genuinely think they're part of a normal, positive community.
They provide the cover.
The innocent facade, yeah. But as you peel back the layers and get closer to the empty center, the inner circle is operating under a completely different, ruthless reality. But the outer layers protect them from the outside world ever seeing it.
That is a highly accurate translation of the dynamic. Each layer of the onion plays a dual role. To the layer inside of it, it represents the normal outside world.
And the layer outside.
To the layer outside of it, it represents radical extremism. This provides a deceptive facade of normalcy to the outside world, while simultaneously convincing the inner layers that their radical extremism is just a matter of degree.
Yeah.
The leader in the center doesn't rule from above like a tyrant. He integrates his will from within. Whatever the leader does, he does it through these layers, which makes the entire system organizationally shockproof against the factual reality of the real world.
It's a chilling architecture.
Yeah.
And it thrives precisely because we've lost the true meaning of authority.
Yes. We don't have the tools to recognize legitimate hierarchy anymore, so we fall prey to the onion. We've lost the groundwork of the world.
Permanence.
Exactly. The permanence and reliability that Roman authority used to provide, which was anchored deeply in the past, has shifted. We are dealing with a protean universe where everything can change into something else, and our political vocabulary has lost its clarity. We are fighting in the dark.
Okay, let's bring all this together. We've gone on quite a journey today. We started by looking at how we lost our testament of tradition, that inherited map that tells us who we are and what is valuable.
And without it, we mutated our understanding of history.
Right, into a mechanical, utilitarian process that stripped intrinsic meaning from our actions. And because we broke the framework, we misunderstood what authority truly is, leaving a vacuum wide open for the totalitarian onion to take root.
This is exactly why you, listening right now, should care about a philosophy book from 1961. When you scroll through your feed and see political systems breaking down, or when you feel overwhelmed by a world that seems to have no stable truth, you aren't just experiencing a bad news cycle or algorithmic burnout. You are experiencing the direct, lived results of the loss of this ancient Roman and Greek framework.
You're living right in the middle of that gap between past and future.
We all are.
And as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We talked earlier about the immense danger of acting into nature, how splitting the atom brought human unpredictability into the natural world, breaking down the wall between human action and nature itself.
And today, we are pushing that boundary exponentially further.
Really are.
We are creating entirely new autonomous natural processes through fields like synthetic biology or climate geoengineering. We are rewriting the code of life and the atmosphere.
And we are doing this without the guardrails of tradition and without the stability of true authority. Which brings us right back to that dark, crushing hallway of the past and future. If we are engineering our own natural processes without a map, are we becoming the blind fabricators of our own unpredictable end? How do you, as an individual standing in that gap, build a new testament for the future out of the raw material of your own actions when the old map has already been burned?
It's a massive challenge.
It's something heavy but necessary to think about as you step sideways into the diagonal force of thought today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.